This is Algebra 2, Lesson 2.3, Explicit Geometric Sequences. So we spent Chapter 1 talking about sequences. A sequence is just a list of numbers, but a geometric sequence is a list of numbers that changes using multiplication. So we multiply a common ratio repeatedly to a given number to generate the next number and the next number and the next number in the sequence. A formula for determining that common ratio would be to take any term in the sequence and divide by the term in front of it. So to obtain the ratio, we could take the second number and divide by the first number. We've already been talking about recursive formulas. To reiterate, we'd have that u0 being the starting number, and we'd have u sub n is u sub n minus 1 times whatever that ratio is. So in the past, if I wanted the 10th or the 12th or the 100th answer, I'd have to put my recursive formula into my calculator and hit enter as many times as necessary. So now I want to have a formula to get that answer explicitly in one step rather than having to hit enter, 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 enter. The explicit formula would be u sub n equals u sub 0 times the ratio to the power of n, since repeated multiplication can be represented with an exponent. And one little extra piece, if we're struggling to get u0, you can take the first term and divide it by the ratio. Since multiplying by the ratio moves forward in the sequence, dividing by the ratio would move backwards in the sequence. Okay, so we have an example here. The first example says find the indicated terms. We have the sequence b sub n is 40 times 1.2 to the power of n. So we're asked to find b sub 0, and that is already given to us because the 0 term is always in the explicit formula. If that wasn't super obvious, we should be able to use our explicit formula and type that right into our calculator. I'm going to open up my calculator. And that would tell us the answer. 1.2 to the power of 0 times 40 is 40. But I want to bring this up to make sure everyone knows how to type that into the calculator. So we have our 40 times 1.2. And on this calculator, the power is a little upward caret right above the division sign. If you're working with one of the blue calculators, it is almost the same spot, but on the exact opposite side of the calculator, so right around that button. Kitty corner up from the 7. Okay, so I want to put a power of 0 there, and then I see the answer is 40. If I wanted to get the first answer, I would do the same thing. Take my explicit formula and put a power of 1. So that one on the calculator again, 40 times 1.2 to the power of 1. And I got 48. And if I wanted the 10th answer, I would do the exact same thing, but I would put a 10 for my power, and I get 247.7 if I round that. My next sequence is d sub n equals 100, 80, 64, 51.2, etc. So I need to find the ratio so I can determine what it's multiplying by every time. And to do that, I want to take the 0 term, I mean the first term, I'm sorry, and the second term, and I want to divide them using this ratio formula. So to get the ratio, I'm going to take the second term divided by the first term, and I see my common ratio is 0.8. If I want to get my 0 term then, we're going to do this guy right here. I take my first term, and I divide that by my ratio. Multiplying by the ratio goes this way in the sequence. Dividing by the ratio would go backwards in the sequence to get the 0 number. So 100 divided by 0.8 is 125. So my 0 term then is 125, and I can write an explicit formula then to determine any term in the sequence. So to get the fifth answer, I'm just going to substitute 5 for the n. And in this one I got 40.96. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with a power of 10 to get d sub 10. And I got 13.4. Continuing on, consider the sequence 4, 8, 16, 32. Write an explicit formula. So for an explicit formula, I need two things. I need the 0 number, and I need the ratio. So I'm going to calculate the ratio first. I want to figure out what am I multiplying by every time I move up this list. And if it's not super obvious, we can take the second number, divide it by the first number, and see that it's multiplying by 2 every time. So if I want to get the 0 number, I need to go backwards. Since going forwards I multiply. To go backwards to the 0 number, I need to divide. So if I take my first number and divide by my ratio, I get that my 0 number is also 2. So my explicit formula would be 0 number times the ratio to the power of n. And if I want my 15th term, I just need to substitute 15 for the power, and then I can use my calculator to figure that one out. Oops. And that would be 65,536. Example C says, consider the sequence u sub 0 equals 400, u sub n equals u sub n minus 1 times 0.75. Write an explicit formula. So I already know what I need to do this one. The recursive formula just tells me u0, and the recursive formula also just tells me r. So when I write my formula, I put in my u0, I put in my ratio, and then it's to the power of n. So to find the 15th term, I just need to substitute 15 in for the power. And I got 5.3 if we round that. One final example. Tanya earns 4% annual interest on an initial deposit of $1,000. Find her account balance after 10 years. So I need my u0 and I need my ratio. The starting amount is $1,000. And I'm earning 4% annual interest. So to calculate a percent increase, we need 100% plus 4%. So whether you're using percents or decimals, we should get the same answer, 1.04 for the ratio. So my formula would be 1,000 times 1.04 to the power of n, and if I want the 10th answer, I would substitute 10 for the power. $1,480. And 24 cents. Okay, that is it for the notes. I apologize for the length of that video, but good luck on the exercises, and please let me know if you have any questions.